because of these things, because we were different, he said I wasn't someone he could see himself marrying.
It was an internal struggle after years of conditioning myself, thinking that, that these things are black and white, as she said, and these rules can't be broken. She made me realize that these things aren't as important as having a great friend.
Take a girl and a guy, and they fall madly in love and form a family. Sprinkle in some counseling degrees and a doctorate, a dream of transforming relationships as we know it. And 20 years later, we give you power couple Dr. Ray and Jean Ketkodian. And this is their podcast, Couples Synergy.
Welcome back to another episode of Couples Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean. I'm Dr. Ray.
And I'm Jean. And this is our podcast about love, marriage, and relationships.
Check us out online at couplessynergy.com and be sure to subscribe to our podcast or send us any suggestions on topics you'd like to hear more about. And now on to Couples Synergy, an in-depth look at love, marriage, and relationships, where we bring you our experiences with working with thousands of couples for over 15 years.
Every day we get to hear intimate details about a couple's celebrations, disappointments, and everyday challenges. We've often wished these stories were shared because we know that we are more similar than different. And so we've created not only an avenue where you can hear about people's intimate lives, but an atmosphere where people come over to our home pub, pour a drink, and share their stories.
People like today's guests, Kristen and Ben. How are you guys today?
Doing well.
Thank you very much for joining us on our podcast.
Oh, you bet.
And agreeing to come on the show.
Thanks for having us in your beautiful home.
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here.
In the downstairs pub here.
Yeah.
Your story is a very interesting one, and it aligns with the topic of our podcast today, and that is multicultural relationships, which Jean and I know
A little bit about.
But before we get to that, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about yourselves? How old are you? What do you guys do for a living? And how long have you guys been together?
I'll start. She's nodding at me. I'm 34. We've got 4 kids together, ages 10, 9, almost 9, 5, and almost 2. We met in Kalamazoo, Michigan at college. I'm from Kalamazoo, so it was kind of a natural thing for me to just go to school in town there. And Kristen came, and she'll talk about this, I'm sure, but she came to school from out of state. We'll get into our story about how we met and stuff, but
What do you do for a living?
I'm a civil engineer. I work for a engineering consultant firm, and we do highway design and construction engineering.
Cool.
Yeah, I know you had a in-depth conversation with our son who's in engineering right now.
Yeah, that's right.
I think he was telling us the highways in Houston. Yeah, I think you were giving him some pointers about that.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And what about you?
I am also 34. I'm from Lake Zurich, so close to here. Yeah, like Ben said, we have 4 kids. We met our freshman year of college. So we've been together now for 15 years, married for 12 tomorrow. I think. Yeah.
Oh, tomorrow's your anniversary?
Tomorrow, yeah.
Yes.
Happy anniversary.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
12 years. And I'm in outside sales for an analytical testing lab for like pharmaceuticals and medical devices. And
That's cool.
So can you guys tell us the story of how you met?
You tell it better than I do.
yeah, so we were actually in the same dorm our freshman year. It was a co-ed dorm, and but funny enough, we met in chemistry class, and we started talking in class. And one day, we just kept talking after, and I was walking back to my dorm, and he just kept walking along. And I get to my building, and he's still there, and I'm like, okay, this is a little weird. Like, all right. So I get into the elevator, and he does too. Hit my floor, and he doesn't hit any other button. And I'm like, okay, this is getting really weird. But we just kept talking.
You're pulling the mace out.
Exactly. Well, it turns out he actually lived across the hall.
Wow.
From me. So yes, and from there we were friends for a few months, and then started dating toward the end of the semester.
Mm-hmm.
And
How did you guys get to go on your first date? Did someone ask somebody out?
our first
What
date
was
was
our first
actually,
date?
well, it was supposed to be that movie that one of our friends in the
yeah.
dorm room kind of invited himself to.
Wasn't it his idea to go to begin?
No, it was
with?
mine.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
So we went to see Lion King in IMAX.
The three of you.
The three of
The
us.
three of us. Yes. I mean, he bought like his own. I mean, we got our tickets together, and then he was like, "Oh, I got it myself a ticket too." So
It was fun though. Was that our first date?
that was
technically?
yeah. And then kind of from there.
We would often go to the Sweetwater's donut. It's a donut shop in town. It's open 24 hours, so we'd go at 2 a.m. or whenever. And
To study.
To study.
Just-
Yeah. Always
So
studying.
that was one of our favorite things to do.
Were you guys in the same class together? Or classes together?
We had the chemistry class. We had
Okay.
that together.
The initial science classes,
Uh-huh.
chemistry and math, and then he veered off to engineering, and I veered off to the science, micro.
I thought she had a roommate named Gail, and they put the name tags on the doors in the dorms. And to be honest with you, she, to me, at the time, looked more like a Gail, and her roommate looked more like Kristen. And so I don't even remember when this was, maybe a month into school before we had started really talking to each other a lot. But I needed to print something off, and I didn't have a printer. I didn't want to go all the way to the computer lab or wherever. So I just knocked on their door and went in and asked them if I could use their printer. And I think I used Kristen's printer. And as I'm walking out, I go, "Thanks, Gail." And she's like, "I'm Kristen."
Is that before or after you guys started talking?
It was before.
Okay.
I think it was before.
Okay.
Yeah, and I still didn't remember you from chemistry class.
How long before you guys knew you were a couple?
It wasn't until really the end of the first year, I think.
Yeah.
When we really kind of realized it.
Yes, because
And
I
then
think
it
we had
solidified over the
some
summer.
kind of breakups in the first few months after first year ended, and then it was pretty much the end of summer when we really started dating again. And then
What'd you guys break up about?
differences, I guess. And part of it, I think, even as the topic is here, stemmed from our cultural differences, really.
That's interesting. Okay. Okay.
Yes.
So what about them was the sticking points?
I think we grew up very differently. Not only are we different cultures, but Ben's father's a pastor. I also grew up Catholic. So they're very similar, but again, not so much.
Yeah.
For our listeners, maybe you guys can clarify, what cultural backgrounds you come from.
Oh, right. So I am Mexican. Both my parents were born in Mexico and came to live in the United States in the 70s. So I was born here, but grew up speaking Spanish, going to Mexico, all that.
I grew up in West Michigan in a pretty conservative Christian household. As Kristen said, my dad was a pastor. It was obviously very much like a lot of other people in the United States, how they grew up, I guess. So our views on religion were different, on practicing religion. Obviously, coming from a more conservative background, I was still very much, it was a very important part of my life at the time. It still is, but much, much more then. We had difference in opinion on, a lot of things, including like sex before marriage, and drinking was a big thing for me. And so those differences kind of, it was a struggle internally with me.
Well, it was internal and a little bit of external pressure as well.
External pressures from my parents mainly.
So in the
Those
beginning,
my
the
family.
religious differences were bigger than the cultural differences.
In a way, yes. There was also and never outright or anything like that, but there was also a kind of an adjustment period even within his family that I was probably the first minority
Absolutely,
for any of his cousins or siblings or anyone had dated. So yeah, that was kind of big, I'd say, at the beginning.
So it's almost a year before you guys are like, okay, we're a couple.
Maybe 6 months, I think, before I think Ben was kind of like, okay, yes,
I can do this.
I can do this.
And what was it about the other person that you fell in love with?
her smarts, her intelligence. I could tell right away that I could carry on a meaningful conversation with her.
Yeah, I agree.
Long
For me,
conversations, and it wasn't. It was natural, and it wasn't forced. We played games a lot.
competitive.
Competitive game. She's very competitive. I'm not competitive at all, but
Yes. Yeah, no, I would say the intelligence as well. We really kind of got to know each other a lot with just communicating and talking and kind of about everything. And that's, I think, when at first we started really talking about how we saw things differently and how everything came up. But I mean, from the very beginning, I knew he was a very intelligent person and fun to be around. He's very kind.
How did you guys navigate those early big topics like drinking, sex, those kind of things?
I think we kind of just like jumped in them and dealt with it after. And in some cases, the fallout from it. But I know like the initial thing was drinking. I grew up drinking with my family and it was just kind of very
It was part of the
normal.
culture.
It was part of the culture.
Right.
Yep. It was very normal. And obviously in college, there's some of that. And so that was kind of a big no for him at the beginning.
And was that because, growing up in a conservative type of environment, it was like, like footloose type of conservative, where you can't drink at all. It's completely frowned upon.
He's a little bit too young to probably know.
no.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone knows footloose.
No, I get the reference. It was close. It wasn't completely nothing, none.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't drink at family outings. My parents didn't drink at home.
Until you guys all left.
They do now, and not a lot, but a little bit. But
What were some of the messages you got about drinking?
this was my choice, but I was part of a program that when I was in high school, I was part of a program that went to middle schools to talk about drinking and drugs and premarital sex. And it was very based in the Christian belief to abstain from all of that completely. And so that's what we taught. And we taught we didn't teach safe sex. We just taught abstinence.
Mm-hmm.
We taught,
Obviously until you're married.
Right.
Right.
Okay. We taught no drinking at all, the dangers of alcohol abuse and drug abuse. I don't know if I did it because I really believed, that was the right thing to do, or if I think my parents wanted me to do it. I don't know. Obviously, I believed some of that. It stayed with me into my first year of college. After I matured a little bit and realized that, some of these things, aren't like evil. It was like a, something that I just wanted to push away from, but it, really not that bad.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I grew up very Catholic religious, and the grade school I went to was a Catholic grade school. Everyone was white. Everyone was married. Everyone was middle class. And like when I went to high school, that was where I got my culture shock. Like, oh, these people are out of control.
Yeah.
There's different everything here. And it is a really big adjustment because when you're a kid, you only know what you know.
Right.
So how was that just going to college, not even the relationship, but just seeing all of that?
College was not, you talk about it being a culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that much of a culture shock for me. It was in the same town that I grew up in. My high school was very diverse, public high school. I had a lot of friends at college from high school and people that I knew. So it wasn't that big of a culture shock.
Did they also share your values?
A couple of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Your close friends did.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
After our freshman year, I moved into a house with a lot of my close friends. And I think we all just kind of grew up and matured and became college guys. And it just
loosened up a little.
loosened up.
So you had a foosball table?
Yes. How'd you know? We did. We had a foosball table and we had a double-decker couch in the living room.
Oh, cool.
That was pretty cool.
Is that like loft bed?
I've never.
Yeah, so
It was a
like
couch.
I've never heard of a
loft.
double
It was a
tower
couch on
couch.
a loft bed. Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
So how did you, so obviously during the first year, there's this like negotiation that's happening between the two of you, right? Because you guys are
Right.
coming from very different types of backgrounds,
Right.
and you have different views about these very important topics. So what were some of those conversations that you guys were having?
Well, I think one of the first ones, like even when we, I think, broke up the first time, that you were kind of hardline on these issues. Like it was black or white with them. And not that they weren't important to me, but it wasn't the most important thing for me in a person or in a friend or, anything like that. And I remember one of the first conversations, I think at the time too, you kind of grew up and at that stage in your life that it was like dating to kind of be serious. Right.
Yeah.
So one of the first conversations, and I still remember this and we still kind of talk about it in the breakup, was that because of these things, because we were different, he said I wasn't someone he could see himself marrying.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the time these were so important to him that it wasn't. And I mean, and even that was, I think, the main breakup. And even after that, we just kept talking about things and, made me realize a little bit of why they were so important to him. And at the same time, him see that maybe it wasn't everything that mattered.
Yeah, it was an internal struggle after years of conditioning myself, thinking that, that these things are black and white, as she said, and these rules can't be broken. She made me realize that these things aren't as important as having a great friend.
They were not absolutes.
They're not absolutes. Right. Developing a relationship with a great person is more important than holding the line with these things that I thought were truths. And to a lot of people, they are. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be for some people. And if I still, if people want to live their lives that way still and grow up and save themselves and just, that's fine. But I learned that it wasn't the end all be all that I thought it was.
Now, during this time where you kind of made mention of some external pressures, right? So were you getting any messages from parents, from family, given the fact that, Kristen is a different minority than the family's used to, right? What kind of messages were you getting?
Specifically related to her being a minority?
Yeah.
I could tell my parents, mostly my mom, was more hesitant with it, with being okay with it. We had one friend that tried to talk me out of dating her several times. And I've
specifically for that reason.
Yeah.
Now that we've come to know him a little bit more. Yeah. He's, I don't know how to say it. I don't know, possibly racist. Yeah.
And
pretty much.
Clearly, it's clear to me, looking back on it now. And he had interactions with Kristen as a friend. He was friendly and he was fun to hang out with sometimes, but in private conversations, he would be like, it's a sin he was Christian also. It's a sin to marry somebody from another religion. At that point, I was past the struggling stage in my journey to know that it was complete BS what he was saying to me. And to him, I didn't begrudge him at all if that's his feeling, but come on, man, don't tell me that I can't marry her because she's Catholic.
And that was what he was passing it off.
Yeah.
So.
That's what he was that was a front, I think.
Right.
But what was that like for you?
Did you know about it all? I mean, would I tell you about those conversations then?
No, it was after. I think. I mean, I felt it. We weren't ever close, but I don't know. As weird as it is, it was just part of a normal, if you will. Part
of a normal.
I mean, in Lake Zurich, there at the time, even yes, we weren't the only Hispanic people, but there wasn't that many. And unfortunately, that just has always been there. So it wasn't shocking, really.
It's very interesting hearing about that because when Jean and I got married, I received a lot of pressure from my family in the opposite direction.
Yeah,
right?
It was reversed.
It was totally reversed. Oh. Right.
Yeah.
That even two of my cousins who I had asked to stand up in the wedding, they actually refused.
And he doesn't have brothers, and they were as close as brothers.
Right. Oh, right.
Right. So there's a lot of pressure to marry a Persian, woman, which I'm half Persian.
Okay.
They didn't mention anything about a Filipino though. So I don't know why they just stress it.
Because your
Anyway,
parents were
because I'm
mixed.
half Filipino.
His parents were mixed. But I
Right.
think your mom took a lot of heat for that as
She
well.
did. Right.
And she was really understanding. And I remember her coming and taking me out to lunch and saying, don't take it personally. It's just how they are.
Right.
And I kind of felt like, well, they don't really know me. So,
Right.
She took a lot of heat in that she would deflect a lot of that.
Mhm.
Or
Yeah.
when they were
Like-
together as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the rest of your dad's siblings are all married to Persian.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And actually, and you would have thought that my parents had more of a problem with it, and it never came up in our family.
Yeah.
That all of us actually are married to non-Hispanics. I have 5 other siblings, and it was never brought up with my parents as to why we're not dating another Hispanic.
I have 2 sisters, and one of my sisters is married to someone who's Mexican. The other one's Guatemalan. So,
And my sisters are married to white Caucasian
yeah.
males.
So in your nuclear family, it was fine. It was more his extended family, his aunts and
Okay.
uncles and cousins.
Right.
And his cousin that he was very close with came back about 2 years later and apologized.
Oh,
That one, that was really hurtful.
Right.
Yeah.
did he attend your wedding?
He did not.
He didn't even come.
So it sounds like Ben, you had to do a lot of kind of soul searching and, really kind of wrestling with a lot of messages that you were taught growing up and trying to find redefine,
Yeah.
a new kind of normal for you.
Yeah. I mean, I learned that I didn't have to do the things that I thought and hold such a hard stance on some issues to be a Christian, to be a good Christian.
Mm-hmm.
And it felt good to just kind of let go of some of those things, because I learned that they're not really helping me be a better person anyways. If it was gonna hold me back from being with Kristen, what am I doing?
So what's it like the first time you attend her family's parties?
So the first summer we were together, was it the first summer?
That was the first
Your
summer.
brother Paul graduated from high school.
Yep.
And she took me back for his graduation party. It was the first time I was there.
And before then, I had told my parents a little bit about him. I'm bringing a friend home. And, one of the things I told my dad was like, he doesn't drink, just letting you know or whatever. And
Within 15 seconds of walking in the house, he's offering me a drink. Why doesn't he want a beer? Ben, come on, have a beer. Come on. It was, and I felt very awkward having to
You're trying to
say
get along, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, I got to reject right off the bat.
Yeah.
See,
And
we
I
didn't
told
know
you-
this,
Right.
and we actually offered you a drink within 15 seconds of coming down here.
Exactly.
So,
No, and my dad definitely knew that because I had told him it was kind of his way of teasing and
Yeah.
poking him.
That was funny.
But yeah, other than that, my parents were hesitant at the beginning just because it was a guy that I was bringing home from college. So
Mhm.
I think that was the extent
It's
of
always
it.
awkward. Wait till you
Right.
guys get there. We've had that with our kids, and it's so weird when they
I
bring
can
someone home and
imagine.
you're like, because you're like the parent then. And you're
Right.
like,
Yeah.
No, I can imagine that. So
Yeah.
that was the extent of their kind of hesitancy with Ben.
and the food.
Yeah. It was great.
I know, right?
Great.
Yeah.
Like his family, like they don't have things in their house like butter or ketchup,
Oh, no.
anything like that. you know.
It's all, yeah.
It's
my
all very
parents-
different, you know.
Uh-huh.
And then one time we were sitting around and his sister had gone to her husband's sister's house for Christmas. She's like, they had lasagna for Christmas. And then his other sister's like, Billy's family had lasagna for Christmas. And Ray's like, Jean's family had lasagna. And we're like, white people food.
White
we didn't even know that was a thing.
So, can you guys talk a little bit about what was going on in your lives before you met in regards to relationships?
I had a number of girlfriends through high school, and one in the summer before high school or before college a little bit. I had 2 quite long relationships in high school. Both were about 2 years. The first one ended up dating one of my best friends for maybe 6 months or a year. And it was kind of weird, but it was fine.
Did the relationship end because of that? Did they get
No.
together? Okay.
Wait, did my relationship with her end?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Did they date first or did you and her date first?
Me and her dated first.
Okay. Then you ended and then she...
I ended on Valentine's Day.
That's apropos.
I don't know what the timeline was. They started dating later on that summer, maybe.
They're married now.
Well, no, this was Jason. So this was...
Did you break up with 2 on Valentine's Day?
No. Danelle.
Oh, Danelle. Right. Sorry.
Danelle and Jason dated after Danelle and I dated. Jason and Danelle broke up, and he's now married to her cousin. And then after they broke up, one of my other best friends, Cam, and Danelle started dating, and they're married now.
Small town.
A town, yeah.
And we wish them all well.
Yep. So I roomed with Cam and a bunch of other guys in college. And Danelle was looking for a roommate, and Kristen was looking for a roommate. And the two of them and another girl lived together for 2 or 3 years?
3 years.
3 years. And so that was kind of cool. I mean, we remained really close to this day, and we're really close with them. That relationship, and then the next relationship I was in was a little bit more involved, I guess you would say. I mean, as you grow older, you kind of learn and you live and you fall hard. You know, it seemed like through high school, I always had a girlfriend for some reason. It was, there wasn't much time there that I wasn't dating somebody. I went to college without having a girlfriend. So it was like almost like the first time since I became an adolescent that I was kind of free. And so it allowed me to kind of do some, focus on school for one, and then just kind of, think about who I am, what I wanted to do, introspection, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I had one main boyfriend in high school for about 2 years. The last 2 years, I broke up with him right after senior year. Kind of, I knew we were going different places for college and just kind of didn't have any plans to be with anyone.
Those are tough times of life.
Sorry. So yeah, I also came into college without dating anyone and no really plans to. My life plan didn't involve getting married until, in my plan, after 30. It's funny because we had 3 kids by then. So it's completely different. I was on path to go to medical school, kind of all that. This was just my life plan, and it all changed, just not because of him, but just in college. And then because we were dating and our relationship did change. And
So how long were you guys dating before it got really serious? Engagement, I guess.
We dated our entire sophomore, started dating after our freshman year into our sophomore year.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it started getting serious that year. I mean,
we didn't talk getting married.
We didn't talk about getting married then, but I mean, we were pretty serious at the time, I would say.
And then we started really talking about getting married probably the summer before our senior year of
yeah.
college.
I mean, that's young to be talking about marriage, right?
It was.
Yeah, it was.
It was very young.
We got engaged the
fall.
The fall after the fall after our junior year.
Mm-hmm.
We're married the summer after Kristen graduated. I had 1 more year. So we dealt with, dissent from both of our families.
Yeah, I can imagine, because you guys are too young. Yeah.
We're so young.
Why did you guys choose that to get married at that time?
I don't even know.
We just thought it was the right thing to do. Right? I mean,
I think so. Yeah.
Why wait any longer?
Yeah.
It seems like both of your cultures kind of support finding a partner and having that connection and loyalty and
Definitely
commitment more than sort of dating around, because both of you have very limited dating experiences and found each other young and had those kind of values.
Definitely.
Yeah. As an adult, she's the only partner I've ever had.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any different. And you talk about having dating, I wouldn't know if we didn't get married and stay together after college. I don't know how would I find how would I find a girl working at engineering firm. I don't go out to bars. I don't know if I would have found anybody.
Wouldn't have been on Tinder.
Yeah.
So thankful we didn't have to deal with that.
Maybe subconsciously I knew that my future self wouldn't have been able to find a partner. And so I better lock this one down.
I like to tease him though, because in his dorm room, he had a poster of Jennifer Lopez. So I said that he was always just into Hispanic women.
So how do you, you're in college. Did you have a ring when you proposed? What was the proposal like?
I juked her out. The week before I proposed, I actually took her to the beach and we had a picnic on the beach. And I actually had the ring with me. I had got it that day. And the plan was never to propose to her at the beach. It was just to go have a date.
I thought it was going to happen. And then
she thought it was going to happen. I think
we had talked about it already. And we actually...
She picked her ring out and
okay.
We went together to pick a ring out for her.
Okay. So you knew it was coming at some point.
We knew at some point. Yeah, we had talked to my parents and his parents actually a few months before.
Did you do that together or did you go talk to her dad?
Go together.
Okay.
Yeah. I asked her dad, hey, there's something I want to talk to you about. Can we go, out for dinner? And he suggested, let's all go. Kristen's mom went. And
so he knew what was coming.
Okay.
Yeah, he knew.
My parents got married also very young. I think my mom was 20. She was 20.
The conversation was good. I don't think they tried to talk us out of it necessarily, but there was definitely some caution.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the biggest things there was that when my parents got married, my mom's dad did not agree. And for the first few years of their marriage, they did not talk. And that kind of hurt them. And so one of the comments my dad said is that if they said no, they knew I was going to do it anyway if I wanted to. And so they didn't want to cause that rift or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that if I thought I was ready, then that they would support it.
Yeah.
And not to give ourselves a huge pat on the back, but we were pretty responsible too. I mean, we were just finishing college. We had promising careers on the horizon. They knew we were responsible. I don't remember having to really convince my parents and your parents that hard to let us get married.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of both of them realized we were at the point in our lives where we were mature enough to know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't know, maybe we weren't, but
so it was
still pretty young, but
it was a pretty similar conversation with your family then, with your parents.
I don't know. I don't recall a specific conversation. I think you weren't there. I think we definitely had a long conversation about it, and it was similar. Yeah, it was similar.
Mm-hmm.
It was similar. My dad was very supportive. My mom was a little bit more hesitant, just because of our age. I think at that time, it took a while. I think just because she didn't know her that well, but I think at that point she was very comfortable with Kristen and loved her. But yeah, it took a little bit of convincing, but not. We weren't fighting over it, and it wasn't like a long drawn out.
So you're on the beach. Does it happen?
No,
it was the next week.
It was the next week. So I had set up with my friend Cam. I had set up.
It was that art exhibit, like the blown art, like Chihuly.
Okay, so Kalamazoo Institute of Art had an exhibit, and I asked Kristen if she wanted to go to see the Chihuly exhibit, and then we'll get dinner across the town square afterwards. And we go to the Chihuly exhibit, and she's not feeling well, and she's trying to rush me through the whole thing. And
I was just in a bad mood.
The plan was to have a boombox set up on the stage in Bronson Park in downtown Kalamazoo with a song, ready to go as we were walking through. It was Elvis.
Well, first it was Shakira.
It was a Shakira
Spanish
song?
music, yeah.
Okay, as we're walking through. And then it was, our song is Elvis,
Fools Rush In.
Fools Rush In. I always forget the name because it's the main part of the song is can't help falling in love with you. But she wanted to get going, and I had to stall a little bit at the art exhibit because I had prearranged Cam. It was going to set up the song at a specific time. So it worked out, I think, great. She was a little annoyed that it took me so long to get out, to leave there. She wanted to get to the restaurant.
I was not very fun that day.
When you were at the beach, were you let down?
Yes.
Totally. Yeah,
What were you thinking at the beach?
Well, I thought he was going to propose. It
would have made a good setting. It would have been nice.
No, but it was fun. It was fun. So then he did propose in the park, and he had our friends waiting at the restaurant. And actually, he had my younger brother go over from here, Lake Zurich, and my best friend throughout high school, Matt. So he and my brother went, and they were at the restaurant.
Yeah, to celebrate. And obviously everybody there knew what was going on.
Yep. So it was good.
That was so that's our engagement story.
And how long from that point till you get married?
Well, we got engaged in October 6th.
Yeah, I think so.
We got married August 25th the following year.
Now, originally we had wanted to get married in Mexico, and we got a lot of pushback from your family on that one.
Yeah, we did get a lot of pushback.
Because they didn't want to travel down there? Or?
Yeah, I guess they just didn't want to have it down there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
How did you guys decide which religion to have the ceremony with?
We had it at the campus Catholic chapel. That was just off of campus. It was like the student Catholic church. But Ben's dad did the message.
Okay. And
the priest also spoke Spanish, so he did part of it in Spanish. And we did parts of the traditional Catholic ceremonies, like especially in Mexico with like the rosary and like these coins and
the lasso.
The lasso, yeah. So we did a lot of that. That's very cultural in Mexico. Sorry. And then again, we brought his dad in to do the main message. So we tried to kind of bring everything.
Incorporate everything.
Yes, to incorporate everything.
Did you guys live together before you're married?
Nope. I was living with our friend. I mean, he was over all the time, especially his best friend was my friend's boyfriend. They actually ended up getting engaged a couple weeks after we did and got married the same summer we did.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So they also just had their 12-year anniversary.
So you walk down the aisle and get an apartment?
We had an apartment before the wedding. We had an apartment together.
I moved in
maybe
like 2 months. I think it was 2 months.
Two months before Kristen.
And it was kind of funny. It was the first time that when I was telling my dad and that we were moving in, or I was moving in and everything. And he's like, "Oh, he said something about Ben." I was like, "Well, no, Ben's, not living there till later." And my dad's like, "Why?" Like that's, and I was like, "What?" Like,
I think I was living back at home at my parents. I think I moved back in with my parents, and I didn't see a need to rock the boat because I know they wouldn't have approved of me moving in with her before.
So you've already graduated. You have a year left. Do you guys stay there?
We did for a year, and we didn't know he was going to have a year when we initially started planning the wedding.
Gotta love college.
So gotta love engineering degree.
Exactly. It was the way the classes he had to take them that it ended up extending out to a year after. So yes, we stayed there until May, and then we moved to Schaumburg right after.
How did you guys decide that?
It was, Kristen wanted to move back to the Chicago area, and I kind of did too. It's not home to me, but it's not so far. And I actually early in my childhood grew up in Northwest Indiana, so it was in the area, more in the area than Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the job market had a lot to do with it. There wasn't a whole lot to be found in Michigan, what I was looking for. So, we decided quite early on that we would live there. I think, I don't know when we made that decision, but probably about the time we got married.
Mm-hmm.
We decided once I was done, we would look to move back there.
So
go ahead. I was just saying, what was that like, living together for the first time? What kinds of challenges did you guys face?
I don't remember anything big.
I don't either. It was kind of
Yeah, I don't.
It was fine.
I really don't. Yeah.
Not that there weren't challenges, but nothing sticks out in my mind.
So it was pretty seamless for
It was
the
pretty
two of you
seamless.
then.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Okay. And so how long after you were married did you guys have kids or start having kids?
we
Well,
2
was-
years.
Cole was born so
Just under
August
2 years
8,
after we got married.
and we would have been 2 years at the end of the month.
So a year after you moved to Schaumburg.
Mm-hmm.
How do you guys deal with conflict?
Could be
Not
better,
well.
I think.
Not well. I'm very passive aggressive, and I think she is too. I think
That
It
must
just
be
kinda-
fun.
it just kind of builds and then
the thing is,
just
he
boils
is
over and
not. You're not so much the aggressive part of it, more than
more
passive.
passive.
And
Yeah.
I will, and because I don't get a response, I kind of pick until I do.
Mhm.
And I realize that. And we'll talk things out after, but I think sometimes we let it go to an argument that maybe shouldn't. If he doesn't respond to something, then I will just keep. I mean, I know I shouldn't, but
So just a little secret. Healthy couples and unhealthy couples fight the same way.
Oh,
Yeah. They call names.
they
They're
yell,
Yell.
they slam doors.
oh, perfect.
the
Then
only
we're okay.
difference is what happens afterwards.
right.
Is that
Yeah.
they make repair attempts and they find resolutions and things like that.
And
So-
they take responsibility for their part in the argument.
Yeah,
Right.
I think we both do that when we realize we're in the wrong.
Mhm.
I think
we're both good
it's been
recognizing that.
better. I'm in, I think for the last year and a half, been doing therapy, just myself.
Mhm.
And that has helped me and how I can communicate better because, as I was told, for such an extrovert, I'm a terrible communicator.
Saying a lot of words, but not really saying
Not really
exactly
the
what
I
you
should.
need. Right?
Yes, I tend to, and that's where the passive aggressive comes in. I tend to kind of keep things deep, but then lash out, kind of thinking that he should know what's wrong, but not really telling him.
I need information to be telegraphed to me very explicitly.
Mhm.
Like on a whiteboard or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah,
Some
Diagram.
And I think
Yeah,
he
I'm not
should just know
flowchart.
what I'm thinking.
I'm not real good at picking up hints.
Yeah.
Can't read that aura.
Right.
Kristen, you went through a very invasive medical, procedure at some point, right? I think you were telling me this, and
Yes.
it kind of floored me. At what point in your relationship did this happen? Maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
This was 2015. February is when the surgery was, but it kind of came up in the fall of 2014. So I guess we were married for 8 years at that point. We had 3 kids. Our youngest was just a little over a year and a half, maybe. And I started getting migraines. And that was kind of the biggest thing, to where I couldn't function I'd have him come home early or my parents come help.
Well, I'd get home from work, even if I'd get home from work early and she'd have been laying, she'd have put herself to bed already and she was out for the rest of the night.
With 3
do
little
anything.
kids running around.
Yeah.
Right. I would
Yeah.
kind of shut him in the room with me,
Mhm.
just do what I can to
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So that was pretty horrible. And then I did see a doctor and it resulted in needing a brain surgery. And so it was planned. Thankfully, it wasn't an emergency or anything like that. And one of the biggest things, I guess we did have a choice of not doing anything, but then there was a chance of a brain bleed, which mine showed signs of having already bled some. And they also said if we ever wanted to have any more kids, which at that point we weren't sure if we were or not, that I would need it, that I would not be able to have. That it was actually kind of a big deal that I had 3 kids and
Mhm.
nothing happened.
What was it that?
It was a cavernoma or an AVM part of it. So it's essentially a blood-filled sac, and it was in my left temporal, my speech center, pretty much what it was. So I just had it removed.
Yeah. So one of the things that we noticed with her when it was getting really bad is that she would just forget what word she was trying to say.
Mhm.
She'd
Or throw out random words.
yeah, just throw out random words. She'd want to ask me to get her a blanket, and she'd be like, hey, can you give me that towel over there, or something even more
Mhm.
random than that.
The lawnmower.
So that's
Yeah.
it was in Wernicke's area in the brain. They call it word salad when you're just throwing out different
Yes.
words.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
So did you get a pretty nice
aphasia, I
haircut?
think. Yeah, I rocked the side
shave.
buzz. I did. I was like the suburban mom with the funky haircut. No, I mean, and to me, I'm very science background. I love it. So it was definitely very interesting. I was awake during it.
Tell them the details about the surgery.
I had to be awake because it was in my speech center. They had to make sure that they weren't going to ruin it or injure it. And actually, the initial surgical plan was to go right through it until he realized that my speech hadn't been mapped, and that we needed to do that before the surgery. So the night before my initial surgery, he called and was like, "We can't do it. We need to do this extra MRI to map everything." So they did. And the interesting thing there, which I never even realized, was that they mapped my English. And they said, we only map one language, so we don't know what it's going to do to your Spanish.
Oh, wow.
Because apparently it's not necessarily in the same spot.
That's interesting.
so
Yes, and it's fine. It was fine.
Did you have the same issues with Spanish with the words that you had with English?
No, actually. No, not that I can think of.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, not that I can remember that. No. That is very interesting.
Yeah.
So no, it was a very obviously scary time, but at the same, I mean, everything turned out okay.
It was,
so you're sitting in a chair and
yeah, I was laying. Yeah, I was laying, and I was kind of covered. It is very Grey's Anatomy like, where it's like a dark room and just a spotlight that you can kind of see. I thought that was all just for show, but
and
no.
cold.
Yes, it was very cold.
Yeah.
And so I do remember everything. I remember being closed up. I remember they showed me a picture of my brain because I asked to see it
as she was laying there
as
on
I was
the
having
table.
surgery.
Like a video of it or a picture?
No, because I was like, can I have a mirror? Like, is there a mirror that I can watch?
Wow.
And they're like, no, but the anesthesiologist was like, but I can take a picture
Selfie.
and show you. So yeah, pretty much.
That's the ultimate selfie.
Ultimate
right
selfie
there.
right
You
there.
should have had him send it to you.
He didn't
I
send
know.
it to
No,
you?
he didn't.
You should have that
That's
framed.
too
I know.
bad.
I know. No. So I was very fortunate. I had,
So are
obviously-
they talking to you during the
Yes,
surgery?
they are. They're showing me flashcards. They're showing me as they're kind of touching different parts of my brain.
And tell him, weren't there cards that were like, it was like a bicycle or scissors
And
or
I,
something?
like when they were touching certain
you
parts, I
have
didn't
no
know what it
idea.
was. Yeah. And then they take it off and then I could say, like, it was amazing. It was incredible.
Wow.
It was just incredible. And then unfortunately, after I did have some complications where they actually let me go home the day after
The day after, wow.
from the ICU.
Outpatient.
I went home pretty much. Yep. They
Outpatient
basically
brain
said something
surgery.
about a room not having, I don't know. So I went
It was
home on
ridiculous.
a Friday and by Monday I was back with brain swelling.
Mm.
So I was in the hospital for kind of
Another 5
week,
days.
another 5 days
Yeah.
after that. So it was kind of trying with the
Yeah.
kids and
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
but there we had both of our families. Ben's mom came up to stay for a week, really. And then my mom kind of took over after that. I actually had his mom come right after because my mom's kind of more of a coddler and I didn't need that right away. Whereas Ben's mom just got things done that needed to be done.
That's funny. Like his mom, if she's getting something done, she wants me there, not her kids.
Right.
'Cause Same reason.
Right.
They're like, they're too
Yeah.
emotional.
Exactly. No, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So then my mom took over after, but
And then you had another baby after that?
we did have another baby after that. So it was good. Yeah.
So we waited a whole year at least, right? A little bit more than a year for you to be completely
Yes.
medically cleared and
Yes.
know that everything's okay. And then
What was that like for you, Ben?
it was scary. Yeah, going through the whole thing. But I knew it was the right decision to make, having the surgery. And so it was just, we got to do it. And we picked a really good doctor and he made us feel at ease. You know, he talked about the surgery being like a piece of cake as far as brain surgery goes. And so that kind of put us at ease. I don't know if it really was. I mean, brain surgery is brain surgery. But, you know, my coworkers were really good. My boss was really good about, you know, allowing me the flexibility, you know, with hours if I needed to be home. And
Some of the harder parts were the conversations before with like the living will and kind of talking about all of that.
Just having to face that reality.
Just having to face that and discuss what we would want and
what ifs,
what I would want, and and making sure he'd do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know if it ever really hit me how serious it was.
Mm-hmm.
Thankful that, we got through it and that she had the sense to know something was wrong.
Yeah.
To go get it checked out,
What were some of those tough questions on the living will?
One was just if anything did go wrong in the surgery, and just all of those, like if you're depending on the state you're in, what to do for care afterwards or not to do. And I think I am very, very adamant about not being just on machines doing nothing there. Mm-hmm. So, which I could imagine would be very hard for whoever had to execute anything, but that was definitely very, very important to me.
Yeah, I never allowed myself to kind of face the reality of that possibility, beforehand. I tried to stay positive and just think about what it was going to be like when it was all said and done, and she's fine. And
yeah, he was kind of reluctant to talk about all that.
I would imagine.
But and I'm also like big proponent of, organ donation, or my body does not need to be buried anywhere. So if science needs it, take it, kind of things like that. Mm-hmm. So I think that's where we differ a little bit.
Did you do anything in a way of preparing anything for your children in case anything happened?
Like for myself?
Yeah. Did you write letters? Or?
I did not. I couldn't. I thought about it and I couldn't. Yeah. I couldn't do that. I couldn't go quite that far.
Yeah. So you guys have 4 kids.
Yes.
How often do you guys get out, just the 2 of you?
Not very often.
You're here now.
We are here now.
Yeah. This
is like date night, huh?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, does this count for our anniversary date?
No, this is it.
Pre-anniversary, right?
Because tomorrow I think we're doing...
We'll play your song in a bit. You guys can dance.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Wait, you guys aren't going out tomorrow night for anniversary?
It's our daughter's 9th birthday on Wednesday after, so I think we're all going to go out together.
All right. Well, we'll have to talk off microphone about that.
It's really hard. My parents watch the little kids now. Well, now it's only one. And we don't really have yet kind of a babysitter that we go to. It's always been my parents. So it's always been a kind of feel bad about asking them to watch them on a weeknight or weekend night when they've already had them all week. So we kind of just do what we can.
Yeah. We don't get out that often. Once a year, maybe. Right?
Once a year. All right. So here's a question for you guys.
We went out last year for our anniversary.
We did. But then we did go to San Diego in November. Just the 2 of us.
So besides like getting out and going somewhere, how much quality time would you say you guys spend together over a course of a week? And to define quality time, it is time that the 2 of you spend without other people, okay, conversing, without any screens. So no TV, no computers, no phones, all right, no distractions.
So this is a almost constant topic of conversation where
with us, yes.
Mostly Kristen, but we both agree that we need to spend more time. It's very, very little.
It's if we happen to go to bed at the same time, we'll talk.
And it's maybe 15, 20 minutes.
A lot of our conversation happens during the day via text or while we're,
So is that just logistical though? Like
no,
the kids are.
It's what's going on throughout the day.
We have some conversations over that.
Yeah. We have a lot of good conversations via text,
but not. Yeah, it's during the day when it comes up, and then after the evening, the kids are there, and we just survive.
Survive
every
is a good
evening.
Word. Survive the evening,
and then generally it's me. I'm off to bed, and Ben tends to stay up watching TV. And
when you do stay up, though, it's we're both on our phones.
Yes.
In the living room.
You text each other at least. No. So just point, for listeners out there and for you guys too, a little bit of information. John Gottman, who's a leading researcher in couples relationships, found that healthy couples spend a minimum of 5.5 hours a week of quality time together. And so that's kind of like the number that people should shoot for, right? It's kind of an ideal,
Yeah.
right? But it's a good number to tuck in the back of your head, to kind of compare yourself to. So,
No, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
I think
And
it's been a bigger topic. I think that we have discussed of how we can make changes to do that.
I would say that's probably the number one thing that we see in the couples we work with.
Mhm.
When we ask them that question of how much quality time, they all say none.
Yeah.
They all have kids and they all find a way to shift that. And if you want a role model, my mom and dad had 9 kids.
Wow. Wow.
And when I was the first 7 of us, by the time she was 30, she had 7.
Oh my God.
And they went out. We had babysitters and they went out at least every other week.
Right.
I know, crazy, right?
the
Yeah.
And
babysitters
one
are
babysitter
in,
for all 7 of us.
the
Right.
babysitters are in therapy right
Yeah,
now.
oh, sure they
but-
are.
Exactly. No, it is something that I do want to make important, and between us,
Yeah, we both do.
we just have to do it.
When you're plugging and chugging, it's not so bad. It's if there is a conflict or something big that comes up.
Right.
And then you, there's nothing to withdraw
To
from.
pull
Nothing to pull from.
Because there's nothing
absolutely.
in the account. Yeah.
Here's a question for you guys. How would you say your relationship is similar or different to your parents' relationships?
On my part, I think, and this is kind of why this has come up, because I don't think my parents put that time in before when we were growing up as well. There were 6 of us, and they are now, don't have anyone at home, and they are definitely very disconnected and just not really where they should be as a couple, especially in, the end of their years or their marriage and everything. And it is very sad to see.
Hmm.
And I do realize they were so busy with everything else that this is kind of where they're left after all the kids are gone, and they're not distracted by that. So
their main focus was the kids.
absolutely.
Yeah.
My dad was working and my mom was the kids. And
So are you saying your guys' relationship is similar to that?
I see it going that way if we don't change things.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I do
absolutely.
too. My parents have had a great relationship. Obviously, they've worked through their issues, but my dad is very in touch with relationally. He has been a relationship counselor for years, and I think they're very good together, and they spend a lot of quality time together. They're both retired now. I don't know. I think their relationship is something that I would want for us.
Mhm.
Not every aspect of it, but I think that is a good example for us to follow.
So I don't think we're quite like either.
Yeah.
But we
Mhm.
But we want to have our own relationship, and I think we need to be more proactive in spending that quality time with each other.
we do a lot of saying we should do this instead of just doing it.
Doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
Shoulda, woulda, coulda.
We should
That is one thing my therapist is like, you need to stop saying we should.
We
or I
should-
should.
we should
like,
stop
say,
saying that.
let's do this, or let's do this.
we should stop saying that.
We should.
We don't really like change as people, and so it's just easier, more comfortable to keep doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But change is always awesome. Every time someone does it, they're
Absolutely.
like, why did I wait
Yeah.
so long?
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
What are some of the unwritten rules in your relationship? So unwritten rules, I'll give you some examples here. Some couples, for example, they don't go out to the bars without each other. All right. Some couples, they don't have any opposite gender friends, for example. Right. And these aren't like, they haven't talked about it and said, you can't do this or you can't, but it's something that they do in order to kind of show respect to their partner.
I wouldn't say either of those. I mean, I guess you could say it's an unwritten rule because neither of us go. Well, no, I mean, we do go out. I mean, you'll go out with your friends. So that's not a. I don't know if we have.
I don't know if we
obviously we
really-
have some, but
Yeah.
maybe they're just unexplored.
Do you
I'm
guys
sure we have some.
have any of that in relationship to taking care of the kids?
Like who's supposed to do what or
Mhm.
anything?
Yeah.
Not really. I think we've always just both done whatever needs to be done. I think it's silly that I feel this way, but I've been very fortunate in that he's been very involved with his children, as it should be. I've seen, from just people I'm surrounded with, or I've seen that it's not always like that. So that is something that we treat every household, everything that has to do with the kids is.
I think we recognize that if one of us is left with all the kids for a long period of time while the other is out doing something fun, that when that person comes back, it's their turn.
It's their turn.
As you're pointing to her, I see.
Do you guys sleep in the same bed
Yes.
Yeah.
with kids?
No.
Congratulations.
Wonderful.
Not saying they've never been there.
Right. But
Yeah,
not
there
as
have
a
been
habit.
Yeah,
No.
not as a habit.
Not as a habit. No.
That's a good one.
Our bedtime is actually really short, and with the kids, it's okay. It's bedtime. Brush your teeth, put them down, and we walk out. And they, more often than not, are good to go. And so it's bedtime from start to finish is like 5-10 minutes. And we hear like it, to me, it's like a horror story. Friends at work that have to fall asleep with their
Right.
kid on the floor, reading them a book, and they're in there for an hour. Then they wake up at 2 a.m. in their kid's bed.
Oh, they
and-
created that.
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No. Yeah. Our kids go to bed very easily and stay, anytime that they try to, when they're sick, they can come into
Sure.
our bed,
Mhm.
but then they're very smart. And then they try to do it a few nights in a row.
Right.
But we're very okay with them crying for a little bit if that means that they need to stay in their bed.
So I'm glad you said that, because it isn't just a cakewalk just to get them to train them to do that.
No.
Right.
So there is a process. And
There is a process.
to me, I think it's 3 days. If you have created really bad habits with your kids,
Yes.
the first 3 days, they'll probably scream bloody murder,
Yeah.
but then they adjust. and
Then
they're
they
good.
adjust and
Yeah.
then they're
Yeah.
fine.
Mhm.
We really had to go through that when we were going to go to San Diego in November, and Eleanor at that point had started waking up at night, maybe once or twice. And normally we could deal with it okay. But when I was traveling, that it was just Ben and she was doing it, the easiest thing would be to give her a bottle
Mhm.
because that would get her to bed. But then she obviously then wanted a bottle every night. And Ben's parents were going to be coming for a week, and we're like, we can't have her be getting up a couple times a night for them. Like, we just can't. So
We
I
dealt
think it
with
was
2
a
or 3
week,
nights,
2 or 3 nights of her just screaming,
and we just dealt with it.
and then she was fine.
Keep that in mind, everyone. 2 to 3
Yeah.
nights.
Yeah.
It's 2 to 3 nights.
2 to 3
You can-
nights, no more.
Everyone can
Past it.
survive it.
Yep.
Yes.
We actually asked that question of all the couples that come and see us is
Mhm.
whether they sleep in the same bed and
Yes.
whether there is a child that sleeps in the bed too.
Yes.
And we find that it's very reflective of how connected the couple is too. Right. I mean, it impacts their relationship together.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
What does your partner do that you know that they love you?
He does the dishes.
She hates the dishes, especially if there's some leftovers in the fridge and it's like a week old. Just the thought of opening that container.
No, I think he knows how important it is for me to be equal in things. And this going back to the main topic here, I think really reflects with how I grew up in our Mexican culture, to where it was a very, very divided male, female roles in the house. And, I would have to make my brother's beds and clean up their dirty clothes
Wow.
growing up.
Wow.
So, that was huge for me later.
The
That it's like-
machismo culture.
It
right?
is. It is very much. I mean, and even now, and my dad does it more to tease me now, but we'll go over to their house and I'll be sitting down and Ben walks in the kitchen. I'll be like, get up and get your husband food. And I'm like, he can get his own if he's hungry.
Do you see that with your aunts and the older
Absolutely.
generation?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I've heard that.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. My dad would say that he'd be, growing up, he'd sit at a table and there'd be a water jug in front of him, but he'd have his sisters serve him a glass of water. So, and it wasn't as intense with us growing up, but it was still there.
Mhm.
Like I said, we did a lot of cleaning and my brothers did the outside work and, kind of things like that. So I think Ben knows how important that is to me. And we really do split everything up in the house, and he helps, and he, did everything really that he could with the kids. So that's huge.
For Kristen, I think it's a lot of things, but the one thing that kind of sticks out in my mind is the effort she's put forth in fostering her relationship with my parents. And I think she probably talks to my mom on the phone for sure way more than I talk to her on the phone, but she talks to her maybe once a week, once every other week on the phone at least. And that just shows me how invested she is with me and my family. And that really shows love, for me.
Well, Kristen and Ben, we want to wholeheartedly thank you guys for joining us on the podcast today.
Oh, thank you.
It was really wonderful to hear your story. And we hope that is able to help a lot of people out there.
We get wounded through relationship and we heal through relationship. And we've been telling stories since the beginning of time to bond and to heal. And we hope that you guys sharing your story has enriched your lives and the lives of our listeners.
Thanks. This was really great. Appreciate it.
For all of you listening, if you have any questions or topic suggestions, please, again, feel free to leave a comment or look us up online at couplesynergy.com. Until next time.
You have been listening to Couple Synergy with Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian. Couple Synergy was recorded, edited, and produced by Dr. Ray and Jean Kadkodian, along with Organizational Director Calvin Javier and Marketing Coordinator Bridget Reese. Voiceover and music entitled Breathe and Let Go was recorded and composed by Gina Gonzalez.